Hey there, my name is Shane Craddock, and this is the Inner Edge podcast, where I share a different take on how to lead and live a sustainable, high-performance life. Over the course of different episodes, I'm going to challenge the belief that tension, stress, and struggle are essential to success and creativity. My experience is that there's an easier way, there's a better way, and indeed there's an essential way that we need to explore for the times that we live in. So let's go ahead, let's jump in and explore. Hi there. This episode was sparked by a client of mine who was telling me that he started doing something we discussed a couple of years ago. But at the time when we originally discussed it, he just didn't take it on board and didn't use it. And when I say he's a client, he's not an active client, somebody I've worked with for a period of time, but I talk to them regularly now. But it was all around gratitude. And he said to me, hey, I meant to tell you, I started doing that gratitude thing the last few months, and it's been transformative. So I couldn't remember what I'd advised him or suggested at the time. So I asked him, and he said, oh, no, it's very simple. He said, but it's so simple, it's surprising how effective it is on me. And he said that he just every morning would, before his day started, before looking at his phone or anything to do with emails or work, he would just pause and he would think about and write down 3 things in his world that he was grateful for. And then he'd do the same thing at night. He said the total exercise probably took him about 6 minutes, but he was shocked at the difference it made to his energy and his mindset. And that's, I suppose, on one level, the subject matter of today's episode is the exploration of gratitude. I'm going to give you maybe a couple of angles on gratitude, because gratitude is a great way to level up your life. Why? Because acknowledging the good in your life is the foundation for more good to show up. It actually helps more good things to show up. Now, before I get into kind of exploring it, just a quick little ask on my behalf. If you like the podcast, I hadn't realized this, but subscribing to it or following it, just clicking the button wherever app you're on, really helps with the podcast in terms of its reachability. So if you could do that now, if you haven't done it already, I would be very grateful. So back to gratitude. Now, I think something that's important to say here is that you can be very successful in any field without having any gratitude. Like, honestly, you can have no gratitude whatsoever and win gold medals. You can make millions. You can become famous. But if you're looking for what I call true success, which is, to me, meaningful success, that's kind of designed around the real you, the authentic you, well, then gratitude is definitely worth reflecting on. And I've worked with enough people who are successful in their different fields to know that, yeah, it's possible to kind of not have any gratitude, but it really creates an emptiness that not pleasant, and worse than that, it's completely unnecessary. Now, the word gratitude comes from the Latin word gratia, and I'm sure I'm saying that right, gratia, which means grace, graciousness, or gratefulness. So grace, graciousness, or gratefulness. Now, there's a lot of research over the last 15, 20 years around gratitude. It's particularly in the area of positive psychology. And what that research is showing very clearly is that gratitude is very strongly associated with greater happiness in terms of feeling more positive emotions, improving your health actually as well, dealing with adversity. It allows you to savor good experiences more and to build strong relationships, all the key elements around having a thriving life. And I mean, what's nice about gratitude is that really it centers around focusing your attention on a thought. So that could be past, present, or future. If it was the past, maybe it's a nice memory from the past that you can actually feel gratitude for. If it's the future, maybe it's a hopeful attitude about what's to come, a gratitude for even having something to strive for. Or if it's the present, maybe it's just really being grateful for your good fortune, being grateful for whatever is in your life. And the most important thing to realize is that gratitude can be cultivated and it can be improved. And in a way, it's kind of an inner skill. Now, specific research in the University of California I thought was quite interesting that I'm going to share with you here, where the researchers had 3 groups of people. The first group, they got them to write about what they were grateful for in the week that was. So as the week was going along, write down what you're grateful for. That was group 1. Group 2, they just wrote about the things that were annoying them every day, the daily irritations in their life. And then group 3, they just would journal and note the things that were affecting them in their week, whether they were positive or negative, didn't really matter. They just would write about the things that they felt affected them. Now, you can probably guess, certainly with group 2 writing about daily irritations, it's not going to be a good result, so it wasn't. But what was interesting about group 1, the ones that were writing about what they were grateful for in the week that was that they were significantly more optimistic, and they felt better about their lives just from a week of doing that. What surprised the researchers, though, was that they exercised more. So their gratitude seemed to enhance their overall state of mind, which seemed to then make them do things like exercise, looking after themselves. So I think that's quite interesting, because that's also what I would see with my work with my clients. Now, the founder of positive psychology is a guy called Martin Seligman. He was the guy, I suppose, originally, I think one of his original books was Learned Optimism. Then he wrote Thrive, and really interesting guy. But he did a lot of different research, and he tried various interventions with people to see what would help. I just want to share one of them with you, where he got people in a research group to write a letter of gratitude to someone that they'd never thanked. So somebody had done something for them that made a difference, but they never thanked the person. And so he got them to write a letter. And he said this particular type of intervention, is what they call it, showed a massive jump in happiness for the person who was writing the letter. And actually the impact on their happiness was far greater than any other intervention. And Seligman noted that it seemed that the benefits of just doing that one thing to one person seemed to last a month. Now, he stated he wasn't quite clear on the exact cause of that, but they noted that it was hugely impactful. I thought that's quite interesting. And I think what's also interesting is that you can force, in a way, gratitude to come in, and it'll have an impact. So even if you're very down, and you can somehow manage, like my client did, to say, I'm just going to start focusing my attention on what I can be grateful for in my life. But what I will say is that, and so like you will get the benefit, but it will help you. But in my experience, you probably don't get the full benefit. So for example, I know somebody who will talk a lot about gratitude. They'll actually do, and what's quite in vogue at the moment is these gratitude journaling, where you write down, everything you're grateful for. But in a way, the person that I know who's doing this all the time, talking about gratitude, they're kind of doing it because at their core, they're actually quite unhappy. They're stressed, they're unhappy. And really, the gratitude for them is more about just keeping things at bay, because it's still very cognitive. It's still very much in their head. They don't seem to be able to bring it into their body, like to really feel the gratitude, which is the other angle. Because you can keep this very much in your head, cognitive, and be grateful, and it will make a difference. But it's more like an aspirin. It's not really getting rid of the pain. Whereas actually, if you can pause and reflect and think about something and really then feel it in your body and consider it really, and really, really, really feel it, it does make a massive difference. It's a big difference. I'm talking a lot about different types of research today. I'm going to throw one more into you. It's to do with managers and leaders. Research done by the University of Pennsylvania in the US again. And, I think this is worthy of note. They had 2 fundraisers for a nonprofit, and they divided them into, fundraisers divided them into 2 groups. And group 1 just made the calls to get donations in the usual way. But then group 2, the only change they made was they got a pep talk from their manager, which was specifically focused on thanking them for all that they did and how grateful the nonprofit and the manager in particular was for everything that they did, for all the calls they made, for all the efforts that they made. What would you think happened? Because obviously I'm sharing because something did happen. I think this is fascinating because what happened was group 2, the people who got thanked, that was the only change. They raised 50% more than group 1. 50%. So I think that research to me is hinting at something else. It's around this feeling, this state within yourself, within the people around you. And it's really about relaxing the minds of the people around you. So with that manager, for me, what happened there was they relaxed the minds of the people in the team. They felt good about what they were doing. Because they felt good about what they were doing, their states went up. Because their state went up, they performed better. It's quite an interesting but subtle thing. I also think another thing that's quite interesting is that some of the most ungrateful people that I've ever met are the wealthiest. And, so having a lot of money in a way doesn't make you grateful. It's a different type of skill. And very often people who sometimes who are very successful in their field, not just even to do with money, they can be difficult to be around because they are very ungrateful. It doesn't mean they can't change though. So bring it back to you as we're talking here. I mean, how grateful do you think or feel you are? I mean, how grateful are you for your life? How grateful are you for what you have or where you are? I mean, how grateful are you for just being alive? Now, maybe you can be like my client. And as a starting point, if any of this resonates, maybe just write down 3 things in the morning, every morning for the week ahead that you're grateful for. But make sure you feel them. And maybe this month as well, you can pick somebody that you'd like to thank and maybe write them a letter or write them an email. Say, hey, and just see what happens. I think it's a pretty nice exercise to do because spreading that kind of energy in the world, regardless of what happens to you, is certainly a good thing. I don't know anybody who doesn't like to be thanked. And it's funny, I often think we take for granted, and certainly I've done it myself. We take for granted the very things that we should be most grateful for. Being alive, the fact that I can actually be grateful. If you listen to this podcast, there's probably loads of things in your life that you can be grateful for. The brain is kind of wired to focus on the negative, what we don't have. So we have to be a little bit more conscious and put in a little bit of effort and say, hey, no, I'm not going to go that way. I'm just going to focus on choosing which way my thinking goes. I mean, not everybody on a very real level has made it this far in life. So the fact that I'm alive, I can be grateful for my life. So gratitude helps your best emerge. Just make sure you feel it. Just make sure you cultivate it. It works. Ciao for now.